Well, good evening and storm days. Yay! Finally, we've got some lightning. Hopefully, you guys are all good. Hopefully, we'll catch you on very soon. And the first of our sort of pre subscriber Patreon type launches. But anyway, testing out how things are go. So, we're going to be sort of again testing bits and pieces today. Going to give you a quick preview of the new app, well, the proposed, well, whatever it's going to be called. It's going to be called the Nerds Weather Center. So, been working very hard on that today, which is why I was like a minute late in getting this stuff today. But anyway, we're still going to look at the bits and pieces. We're going to look at what is happening in the week ahead, of course, to what's going to happen in the terms of rainfall until the end of the month. And then from next week onwards, we'll start rolling back in once I get some of this work done on this, the Nerd Center and bits and pieces, because obviously at the end of June is only 15 days away now. Then we'll actually start running out, of course, the climate outlooks again. We'll have one for July. What's next week? Going to be the 22nd. Probably a bit too early. I think we might leave it to the weekend after, because I think that will be like the 28th or something like that, which will be, yeah, bit 29th. So we'll do definitely the climate outlook on the 29th. And that will be like also the soft launch for the subservice, because it should be up and ready to go by the 1st of July. Fingers crossed. But let's get onto it. I don't know. I've still got that up there, graphic up there. Let's get in some information going for you, and we'll have a look at what the hell is going on at the moment. So welcome. And the chat's live, so we've got that running, so you guys should see that. And I can see that now as I'm talking to you, which is going to be even better, because that makes me be able to answer questions real time. So hopefully the latency is good tonight. Hopefully the sound is good. Hopefully there's sort of no dagginess around. I've also learned that I can also hide the toolbar, so you're not getting all that trash as well. And yeah, it looks a bit more lean and clean. And then next week I'll have some new graphics done as well about just the differentiation between when I stop the normal stuff and when the subscriber stuff will start, so people can get an idea. I'm not going to do it this week because I just haven't had the time, because I've been madly working on this stuff. But I'm going to some really exciting stuff to show you without that, so that will be ready to go. Otherwise, let's hop into it. So this is our excellent line of storms. Now that all came about thanks to that upper low. Now we did mention a few, it was at least a week ago, it did sort of say there was something potential coming around, and then the models all sort of weren't interested in it. And when I got up this morning, which is why the forecast took a bit longer than it normally did, was because I had that upper low spinning, and I thought, this is not going to be fine, or what all the models were saying. And then I noticed that this morning EC madly dropped out a potential for a storm, and I was like, out of nowhere, I'm like, something is not right here. So we zoom out, and what we'll do is we'll go into and we'll check out the 12 hours, and you can see just exactly how this beast actually developed. So let's go. It's going to obviously take its time to load this satellite picture. So we'll go back to the start. And this is what I saw. We must go over here. This upper low here in western, sort of southwestern New South Wales and northern Victoria is what I've been watching for a few days, and it's been spinning up out a cutoff. Now it's not surface in any way; it's all upstairs stuff. So the surface was a bit too dry. But what it did manage to do is that it managed to tap into some of that leftover moisture that from the system that came through the other day. Which is still sort of bobbling off into the Tasman Sea, and it managed to suck a bit of it in. And since I saw northeasterlies on the forecast or the EC this morning, I'm like, there's a bit more of a chance of something happening today. So if we look at this, and we just know how windy loves it, you can see it there, lovely. You can see the surface reaction here by all that dotted cumulus, and that's as it sort of sucked in. So I'm going to see if I can actually make that a bit slower. Can I slow that down? I don't think I can on this. I think it's just full pelt go, or nothing much with windy. But I just want to see, you can see here again, even looks like an eye feature there, but you see there's not a lot happening on the surface here. It's very much an upper system, and you can see that 3D layer effect there. But then you got this inflow band tailing in, and that's what could have piqued my interest this morning. I'm like, this is not going to be. And then you've got this band of moisture here, which has been sitting off the coast for a few days, associated with that Tasman low, which is still sitting around, but it's still quite a moist, unstable southerly flow that's been hanging around. You can see it by the speckled cloud here off the coast and these sort of lines of clouds. When I saw that this morning, I'm like, nah, this is not going to be the usual day. And we can see as that the upper low does get closer. This streaky cloud here is the jet stream enhancing it, and then you can see there's a ripple sort of dotted effect as it does suck the moisture in and starts to then, develop this cloud band. And you can see that by this stuff off the coast, that was also another flag this morning when I could see storms bidding off the coast this morning. I'm like, yeah, no, this is going to be more than just what EC and the models are doing. And of course, as it got off the Blue Mountains, it tapped into a bit of a better moist airstream. I'm not going to say it's going to be moist because obviously it's winter, but it's subjective. And away we go. And zero models had it, other than EC had a chance of a sort of storm right on the coast, but then it was more off the coast. And I'm glad I did actually put that in the forecast because I ummed and ahed this morning. I thought, looked long and hard. I thought, nope, I think there's enough in this upper low the way it's going at the moment to trigger something. And lo and behold, we all have a bit of light show. I mean, we didn't have a lot of rain here in the Shire, but we did have plenty of thunder and lightning, which was great to hear. And you can see it really kicked off. It was pretty more north of the airport into, especially the northern beaches, where a bit of convergence, and there was a bit more of a northeasterly air mass sitting there, enough for it to tap into. And you can see it just firing off, and away it went. So lucky us, a winter storm, and fairly rare at that. Now, and I said in my comments, which you probably all saw when I posted the video, that was a rare convective storm. And it actually is. Normally we have an advective type situation, which is, again, winds and the basically different winds create the instability. This was generally, even though it's not summer, but generally the surface is warm enough compared to the upper levels to actually initiate convection. It's still pretty more an advection if you want to be technical, because it was associated with this upper low. But, it's still... for me, it's a convective type of situation. And you can see the cloud tops aren't massively high, but they're quite crisp and white down here. Now, if I was to go just to satellite and get rid of the radar part, and we'll look at infrared without the radar, you can see, the mass down here is actually quite high for winter, that is, dead winter. And you can see here, if we zoom into us, it didn't quite get up there in terms of height, but it was still high enough for actually, because the air was still cold enough. And if I go back just when the sun was still up, there's still some decent high clouds there, heights of the clouds there. But it's what really helped it out, and we'll look in a minute, is actually the cold air above with this upper low really squeezed the air. You can see here some of those cloud tops in that blue. That's actually starting to get up quite high. So as it sort of peaked on us for a change, and that's really what helped drive this whole system. So we're going to zoom out now, and we'll check out the temperatures up there, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so we're going to go above, we're going to go, so I think this is probably around 800 or 750 was driving it. Let's have a look, probably 850. Yeah, more, let's try 850. So you can see this is the models, can't go back any further, basically view of the world when it comes to temperatures upstairs, and 850 is about 1.5 kilometers up. So there was even a chance for sleet at this stage, what EC said this morning. I no doubt about it. I think there would have been some sleet mixed among this in the higher peaks on the Southern Highlands and in the Western Blue Mountains or the Oberon area, because it was just super cold. Actually, I'm going to see if Access C might give us a little bit of a bit of a higher red version. We can't get back any further. But so you can see here very much this band of very cold air. And that's basically what drives upper lows in the first place. So as soon as I set it upper low on like cold air upstairs, you can see it's actually quite cold compared to what was ahead of it. So, when you're looking at a 5-degree or 6-degree difference in winter in temperatures, which is why I say convective and not advective type system, automatically the air rises a lot quicker and a lot faster because of that temperature differential. And so what's called the lapse rates, which is the rate at which the air rises, are steepen. And we'll look at, I can show you what the sounding looks like, or the air profile which causes it. So if we will skip through today, you can watch that cold air comes through, and you just watch what it does to the temperatures. And I'll put it there in Western Sydney as that does pop through, and you can watch them just drop quite significantly. So, I mean, I don't think it's 3 degrees, it's pretty low on that. You can see 2 degrees there. And then the sort of more substantial air mass, and that's also what's going to create tomorrow's nice and cool, or the nice and cool conditions tonight. To be honest, it's going to be pretty cold. And you can see I don't think it's 3 degrees at all. I think EC is probably going to be better about this. Let's see what it says. Data's not available. No, it says 3 degrees. I don't think it's 3 degrees. I think it's probably more about this 1 or 2 degrees because there was small hail, which quite clearly says that the air above us was a lot cooler than expected. No, that it was the rapid convection, and then other reasons why we had that sort of storms on the coast. You can see that there's this sort of always this blob of cooler air that sort of leaks out ahead of it and ahead of the sort of upper lows. So that's really what initiated the activity for today. This upper cold pull, and we'll go to a bit higher. So that's 850. So if we'll go to a bit higher, you can see it's pretty freaking, and -9 at 7 kilometers, -8 is pretty cold. And then you can see behind here, then it rapidly warms up behind. So we've got really, and this is really encapsulating this upper low now. So zoom out a bit if I can get that freaking wheel scroll right. This is really what has driven this engine today. You can see it's a patch of very cold air, -9 at its heart, and that's really what drove it. And then the bit of down mixing into those mid levels, lower levels is then, well, of course, what triggered it. So, when the surface got up to, what was that, balmy 17, 18 today, maybe, you think then you add that -7, so that's 25 degrees lapse rates. That's what really just kicked it off. Really, really just fired things up, and away it goes. So that's what we got for today. So that's why we had storms. And, incredibly, actually, for winter. And if we have a quick look at that, sounding, we should be able to get it from here. Airgram should be it. No, Mediagram. Oh, I can never find it on here. It is. I think you need to go over here. If I remember, they just hide it all the time. Aerosun, Radiosun, there it is. So I click on that, you'll see what I'm talking about when before. So this is actually the cross section of the air today. And you can see it's actually quite unstable in those low levels, which is why I saw that. Well, this is potential for storms. You see that, and there's very good upper divergence or very strong winds up there, which is the jet stream. And you can see it's a typical jet stream. And if I make that bigger for you guys to see it, it's pretty much a winter jet stream. You can see solid westerlies all the way through, basically from, what's that, about 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers up, straight through up until the tropopause. Solid westerlies, classic feral cell, which is the way the area is organized when the different seasons. This is definitely a very cold looking profile. And then this is what I was talking about before. You can see the air just rising very quickly because of that upper cold. You can see it just sucks up and then it backs away. So there's a little bit of an inversion there, but that got washed out earlier, so ignore that. But and then you can see how the air just backs quickly. Now, if I get out of that view and I go into the skew tees, that's probably a better view for you. Because, no, actually, I'll keep it in the skew tees. Sorry, I'm clicking around. I'm just trying to think about. So really what happened is that because was probably a little bit warmer than the models expected and a little bit more humid, you can see here that green line is the line of where is basically where your cape is. So you can see just the wider that lives between that grey line and that green line is basically the energy or the fuel needed for stuff. So that's why, so you can see the line backs away quite nicely and then bang, he hits that sort of drier, colder, drier, warmer air. You can see how the line here bats out to the right. So you can see it goes from, -3, -4, -5, and doesn't really get cold. It stays at -5 quite a bit, but you can see how dry it does. It goes from, -8, -9 out to -35 within the space of 100 meters. And that's called the inversion. And that's basically that upper level system, the upper sort of you can see that's where basically this is where the sort of upper, well, it's pretty more a mid-level low when you look at this, to be honest, but that's where it basically stops, and then you've got this next slab of the next system sort of pushing through, and then you've got the jet stream up here. And that's basically what caused it. Righty. So let's have a look at what is in store for us tomorrow. We'll get rid of that crap off there. We'll go into rain and thunder. You can see what I'm saying here too about possible for sleet tonight. You can see rain with snow on those higher peaks, and this is even on EC. Just how cold it's going to be from that air mass, and then you can see storm pushing through, clearing out. And we'll zoom in for us. We don't really worry about anywhere else at the moment. Basically, you watch those temperatures plummet for tonight. It's going to be cold already. You can see it's down to 5 tonight already. This is on EC. Down to 4 by midnight. 3 early morning. 2 degrees by 5. I reckon it's going to go sub-zero. Like, I think one thing I've noticed this season is because of how cold it's been, the models have been absolutely way underestimating minimum temperatures. So regularly I have to take off 2 to 3 degrees myself when I look at it. But when I start to see, Sydney at 6 degrees, I know that inland's going to be 0 or below 0. So I think definitely frost right across this area tonight. In fact, if we look into the chance for fog for tomorrow, you can see it's quite dramatic up there in the Blue Mountains, as you can be surprised. It's not as strong as I thought it would be because I think it's a bit of that dry air coming through. But when it says fog, you can see fog and rime, and rime is the American term for obviously frost. But you can see, especially across that northwest area, definitely there's coloured fog. It says no fog, there'll be fog. Frost basically all the way from this sort of the back of Hornsby Plateau right through into the back of the hills. But I think there's definitely going to be fog. Maybe not some fog, but there's definitely going to be frost down here. I think because when we look at the dew point it will be, see 1 degree. You need dew points of 2 degrees or less for frost, and you can see it's basically, so I reckon anywhere sort of Parramatta west is going to get frost tonight, early morning. Or the chance for frost anyway. It's pretty cold, pretty dry air mass coming through, and it is going to feel frigid for overnight. It's probably going to feel actually the coldest night we've had this year. And it won't technically be the coldest night we've had this year, but it will feel like it because of just that air mass behind this upper low, and there's a high pressure moving through behind it, which will basically keep the air nice and still, and there will be plenty of outgoing warmth to escape. There'll be nothing holding it near the surface, and it's going to feel pretty damn chilly. And yep, it'll feel like the coldest night. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Richmond right through to sort of Camden will be, maybe minus half a degree or maybe -1 perhaps. And maybe we might even see lower than that. It's very still. There's not much wind. As I said, the air behind is very dry, which is what you really need for these super cold events to happen. So bring it on, I guess, for you people out there. But I mean, it's 6 degrees on the coast. What is it? Icon's the only product, mind you, that does actually provide frost and fog, which is bizarre in itself. But I guess they have a lot of fog in Germany. But yeah, when you start to see max temperatures of 6 degrees in the city or on the coast, then it's going to be freezing. And I think even Axis C, which has been pretty good, I must say, for minimum temperatures this year so far. It should prove me wrong now, but yeah, there we go. It's not too bad, down in 3s. But then, I think it's overdoing quite a few people. A few places, but it's actually been better than I thought. It is going to be cold. You can see basically minimum lows all across the basin, even to the coast. So 5 degrees in the Shire, that's going to feel frigid. And in fact, it's getting cold already, I notice, now that this system's sort of pushed out off the coast, and we're getting that sort of dead air starting to fall now, and there's not much wind. You'll probably notice that if you walk outside now, it feels cold. Hello everybody, I'm just being yabbering. Mr. Sean, Mr. Preston, Mr. Sharp, lovely to see you. Mr. Dine, lovely to see you too. Glad to see you all. Do you hope you enjoyed that storm? I must say, we were the only people who called it. No one else had it. So I'm glad I actually put that in this morning. I ummed and ahed about it, as I said at the start of the stream, whether I was going to do it or not. But I thought, nah, if I just had to put it in there because I hate what that sort of happened, and then in the last minute it happens, which is what happened. So consequently, looking at tomorrow, of course, we will go back to EC because our access C has just been trashy from maximum temperatures. First thing we'll do is we'll zoom out. Fuck, I'll kill you with the zoom, the scroll. One of these days, I actually have to adjust this scroll because it's so sensitive. So you can see that's a leftover of the upper low going out there. It's going to induce a weak Tasman low, which is going to really not do much actually. And there's quite a massive blob of high pressure you can see pushing through here. And just a reminder that you on these isobars, you can probably see, you'll see the bluer ones, and you'll see these sort of yellowy, orangey color ones. They basically indicate your differences in pressure. So blue is obviously low pressure, and you can see we're under these yellowy, so orangey ones, very dominant high pressure system for most of the week. And so that consequently we will see us, with a pretty decent day. Probably going to be partly cloudy, I'd say, with a bit of leftover moisture, but I doubt very much. As you can see, there's a light norwesterly flow coming through off the back of this high, so I very much doubt we'll see probably like we had yesterday, which is probably more sun, maybe a bit of high cloud every now and then, but it doesn't look to be cloudy. We'll check that in a minute. And then going through for the rest of the week, high you can see is really driving stuff. There's going to be this front, but it's going to be bumped down by this high pressure system coming through. You can see it here. It's really starting to push that away, and you can see there's quite a bit of a ridge behind it. And then this is the thing I'm keeping an eye on. I did flag the other day. This looks very suspiciously like a long wave trough, which is not again in the models, and that will be interesting to watch. But you can see what will happen is this high will bump this polar low down. But what it won't do is it won't stop this dry, cool southwesterly air from actually being wrapped up into it, because you remember high pressure system. It circulates anti-clockwise. That's correct, isn't it? I always get mine wrong. And so it's actually working in unison with the low pressure system, which is working this way. So it's actually dragging this cooler, dry air up. And while we won't get those, what Victoria's obviously getting, we'll get definitely this cooler, dry air, as you can see, the leftover stuff. So it's going to be, it's going to be mid-teens, I think. Whether I'm looking at the temperatures myself, I'd say mid-teens this week, but it's going to feel pretty much like winter. But the sun will be out, which is nice, and you can see here actually going to cause snow on the snowies, which of course won't help our situation much at all, because we'll get that leftover dead dry air. Thankfully, it's not going to be too windy, but we'll check that out. And you can see midweek though, as that high does start to move a bit more east, we can see it start to clear out, and those winds will start to ease again, and basically some still sort of air. You can see that it'll keep the southerly flow off the coast. And this next system here basically peaks on Perth and WA. There's not much to it. You can see I was thinking it might be a long wave trough, but it's sort of died in the backside. There's just no support at the moment, no upper support. And you can see here the fetch of this high coming through. So towards the end of the week, we should see a couple of days of quite nice sort of fine weather. May even get up into mid to late teens looking at this, because nice and stable, but there's going to be a lot of dry air dropping out of this too, so there won't be a lot of chance for it to get too warm. And it's the weekend, it's just basically going nowhere. At first, I thought it was going to actually have this sort of northwesterly sort of component drag across it, so you can see where the fetch of this high is a bit more, bit warmer air, not necessarily warmer, but no, it's not going anywhere. So that's going to basically mean sort of mid-teens days, not reasonably sunny, I think, but then nights are going to be cold and crispy cold all basic week, and really no chance of any rain whatsoever. Looking at the sort of more broad scale things, you can see basically the pattern is quite stable. So when we look at these sort of patterns in terms of identifying potential key weather events or weather systems that may give us some interesting weather in the future, you look for what's called the long wave trough. So these little ones here are short wave troughs. You can see how small they are. So short wave troughs are basically exactly what the definition is. Short wave means don't last long. They push through. whereas long wave means they back like this one here. So this is a potential long wave trough building here. You can see it connects down to a very deep polar low, which extends the trough way back up into Madagascar and almost Africa. Now that's what's called a long wave trough. And these are short wave troughs. So those little pulses of instability. Normally you get like a day, a front comes through, most likely normally dry front, nothing much with them. Not bad for snow though, for the snowies, because of they tend to drag this sort of southwest component, which is actually better for the snowies than for us. But then this long wave troughs is you can see here the consequence of it drags up a lot of cold air from it on its backside as it pushes through. And these are the sort of things we look for in terms of potential nasty weather coming through, and even east coast low forming or developing type systems. You can see not much happening there at all. In fact, there's not many long wave troughs at the moment. There's probably this one sort of off the coast of South America. That's probably about it, which is not unusual. And this is probably more what we're seeing now is pretty more late July weather, to be honest. So it's been a sort of backside around sort of event. We had a very wet May, which is not supposed to be wet. It's something like June. So it's almost like the months are skipped ahead. And we're sort of in July weather now. But yeah, well, interesting to see. I don't get too despondent when it comes in terms of rain, because we saw today just how things can still push through. These little shortwave systems can push through, which is what we're seeing. Actually, I'm way ahead here. What am I looking at? This is the 21st of June. That's useless for you. But yeah, okay, so we'll just go through. And you can see there's nothing coming through. There's quite a few little shortwave fronts or shortwave troughs coming through as those little, like almost like apostrophes. Nothing major. And you've got this potential long wave event here, which is what we're looking. And if we kick through, we're at sort of 7 days now, so this starts to get into fanciful land. But still, there's no real structure to it. You can see here it sort of peaks ending the ocean, and then it hits this massive high pressure systems here that are dominating us. You see this little cutoff here, and then this is what they do spawn, is these little cutoffs, because really, if we go back and I show you the cross section of what a long wave is, it's really just about temperature. And I've explained this pretty a few times, but if I show you here and then I zoom out into where the engines of these things are, yeah, it's probably going to be a bit higher. So there you go. So this is about where the jet stream activity is, and you can see these blobs of Antarctic air basically, and they get dragged up by the systems, and then they get captured. So this starts off over here. You can see here this low, massive blob of cold air, and as it moves to the west, the westerly geostrophic flow, which is normally west to east, actually grabs some of this colder air off it, and you watch it on the models here, and then disconnects it from the actual Antarctic sort of polar air mass, and that's basically what caused it. So you can see that's what happened with our stuff today. So if I go back to here, pretty as far back as I can go, you can see this bulge here, which is an upper level trough, and you can see how it basically cuts off that blob of colder air, and then as you move through, that's obviously not today's one, because we can see that cold air then gets cut off, and then it basically does its own thing, and then it obviously warms up and then runs out of puff. And that's exactly what we're looking at for in terms of this system coming through, which is the one that I said that potentially, you can see here they throw up these blobs of cold air, gets cut off, and this is the one that will give us some potentially interesting weather. Unfortunately, it's not a long wave trough, which is where you get really the sustained, deep, good weather. So it's not going to be an east coast low, but you can see here the bulge is upper trough here. So that's an upper trough. You can see how it pushes right up, like a finger going right up into Western Australia, and the air forces up around it and then down on the other side of it. So that's an upper trough. Then you've got the reverse, which is like a ridge, upper ridge. You can see here pushing way from this high way down south of New Zealand, and that you can see what it does, it deflects those fronts away from us. So that's basically your system, so they're balancing each other out. So as strong as the ridges are, you can bet your bottom dollar that as strong as the upper trough systems will be to the west. And so that's just a matter of where they peak. So this system coming through, just giving as east it catches up, you can see it spawns a cut-off layer, which is what we're seeing here. And you can see that jet stream coming through, wrapping around. I'm really going to ramp that up. And you can see that upper, that cut off flow now, so it's cut off from the flow before. So you can see the westerlies here, the very cold westerlies is quite displaced, so it's cut off, and that's exactly all cut off means. Basically, disconnected, removed from whatever you want, whatever team want to do it. But they use cut off because it gives that, gives that the verb impression, like a doing word impression of that disconnection from it's basically its fuel source. And then you can see as it moves through, not going to do much for us, unfortunately, because you can see it peaked over SA, and then you can see it just get battered down by this massive system high coming from behind it, and it starts to ridge behind. You can see that it bulges over the top of it. What it does is then it sort of pushes it, it wraps around on the north and then pushes it down to the southeast. And you can see here that ridge pushing through, bulges away. I mean, it does give gives a little go. You can see this little trough here, which is, if that was connected to a long way trough, that would be definitely something I'll be watching out for ECL development. Absolutely, which is exactly how this sort of stuff happens. This upper troughs come across, but you can see here the ridge ramming through behind it, and then shunting it down to the southeast and basically getting rid of it, and then coming from behind. Now that's an interesting one here. That's that original, that upper trough here. You can see how that bulges, and that's a long way north than it normally are. And that's what we call the preloading phase for East Coast lows. So I'll be keeping an eye on that very, very, very closely, because that's exactly where our East Coast lows develop. 14 up to 30 days out, 14 to 30 days out before they even get a chance through. And you can see here now moving through. Nothing yet, but it's way too far out in the models to be worried about. I mean, you can see, again, the effects of it. Disconnect that. You can see this little shortwave trough here, the little bulge, and then bang, away a Tasman low goes. Bang, straight up to 989. A really nasty little Tasman low. But yeah, watching this little bulge here, that's what a preconditioner for East Coast low development is. And then you have that ridge moving through too, which is also another precursor for it. So there is a potential flag for something early July. Heads up for you people. That's what this whole thing is about. Jumping into this, that is definitely something I'll be watching very, very closely, because that is interesting. But unfortunately, the bad news is, well, good news for Mr. Sharp is that it is going to be pretty fine. Dead quiet for the rest of June, really. There might be these occasional shortwave troughs, as we were just showing you, pushing through, and it's going to be cold. You can see here, if I just give you a quick summary on each day, you can see there's not a lot of warmth coming down, and not a lot of green staying across us. It'll stay cold pretty much every day, just thanks to the high pressure system. Towards the end of the week, though, it should get a bit milder. You can see a bit of light green, and then you can see this next system. You can just see how much they influence their environment, how much colder they shunt up, and how far north it's like well into the tropics. And that obviously keeps the interior cold, which stops that warmth building. Again, you can see here a massive blob of cold air, really surging it, and I really don't like Windy's coloring. I'm actually going to work out how I can sort of adjust it, because light green for me says mid-teens, but that's actually not mid-teens. Well, that is, but getting into like 10s and 11 degrees, that's cold. For me, light green should be applied to like 16, 17, 18, about what you're seeing there, not 12 degrees. I need to sort of look at how I can adjust that color scale a bit more accurately, because I think that is definitely misleading in that terms. And you can just see that massive surge of cold air surging right across the whole of the country. There's a real cold spell coming up, actually. Look at that. That's actually going to be some pretty cold weather coming through. Not much rain, though, unfortunately, at all. If we'll pop out here, we'll have a quick look from a broad scale view. But you can see the consequences of this, dominant high pressure system and the bumping of these fronts away to the south. There's not a lot of support for much happening down. Tasmania and Victoria will do quite well, and so will Southwest WA, which is good because that's really their time of year and they tend to shine. And the Snowy should do all right, actually, because of this southwest component where the high is working with the low to drag up some cold air, and that will really benefit those sort of southwest facing slopes. So they'll actually do well, the Snowies, and then this massive high parking its ass over us after it really also helps the Snowies as well, because it keeps the air very still, and that cold air descending, so dragging air from way upstairs across the snow. It keeps the pack nice and firm. And you can see really nothing at all, like really quite fun. Even that cutoff flow that comes through, everything is going to give Adelaide some good rain into inland New South Wales, which is good. But you can see again hits the western sort of dividing range and filters us out. Not much at all. You can see the snow symbol there. Quite a few little shortwave troughs. You can see this massive polar. Look at that 936. Wish that wasn't the back end of a shortwave trough. So you can see it before I was saying about, really benefiting the snow. As you can see, just persistent dragging up. Look at that air. It's coming from what? It's coming from Antarctica, basically. And so it's just going to be freezing cold for us. But no rain at this stage at all until the end of June. I'd say we're looking at a pretty below average, if not a very well a below average June at this stage. Which is interesting because my little rainfall model I had was trying to tell me that was, we're going to be like 100 mils anomaly for this month. I'm like, are you sure about that? I'm not, I wasn't convinced, but you know what? Looking at this, unless there's some significant changes, it's not going to be far off actually. All right, time to go into the hyper level. So we will get back into what we're all here for and back into home. And we'll get rid of the radio sons and get back into our favorite, which is forecasted weather. And we'll look at this week for you. There'll be plenty of sun, so it's going to feel quite pleasant in terms of that sort of good, but the air is going to be quite nippy. So tomorrow, cold night, as I said, very cold night, and sunny, as I said, mostly sunny. There's dead air mass from behind it. You can see 15 to 16 degrees. It's going to be cold. It's going to feel cold too. Again, cold nights. Look at that, clear skies, clear days. Getting a bit better, as I said, towards the middle of the week as that high squeezes its fat backsides across towards us. So as I said, mid to late teens. Bit of a surge of westerlies on Wednesday though, so back to cooler. But look at that, as nights staying cold all night, all week. 6 degrees again on Thursday. Whoa, it's going to be, look at that, it's definitely going to be frost. It's going to be frostathon all week. So that's pretty not good news for you, Mr. Sharp, and your lawn business is going to kill off quite a few lawns, I'd say. Again, look at that, Friday, 6 and 1 degrees. So it's probably going to be -1, maybe even -2 Friday morning out west. Cold, cold, cold. And even pushing into Saturday, and there's a bit of cloud coming around, but that's nothing in terms of providing much effect. And then we can see, as we said before, we showed you there's a real cold spell coming. There's going to be some warmth from that Monday and Tuesday because of that pre-southwesterly airstream. So I said that was a bit of warmth would leak down. Looks nice, but I'd take that with a grain of salt, to be honest. It's that far ahead. But then we kick into the rest of the week and it's cold and again, strong winds. Thank God we're not actually seeing those horrific westerlies yet, but there's the first sort of sign that they're coming, that southwesterly slap on that next week. Of course, if that does happen. If we'll put up wind gusts, we'll have a look at what's, we'll look at the, well, why not? We'll look at the accumulated rain for you guys. Why are you not showing me accumulated rain? Okay, there we go. So no guesses. It's pretty going to look pretty dry. And as I said, no real outlook and no rain completely in the outlook now. Check GFS saying, GFS likes maybe a scabby coastal shower, but I wouldn't get your hopes up too much about that. And Axis, I think, is pretty much going to be the same. Yep, it's dry, dry, dry. So really, not a lot happening. Pretty settled, typical fat high weather. And going from there now, we're going to look at wind gusts is what I look at. I was going to just check out and see what in terms of, we'll look at EC. In terms of winds, going to be pretty light, moderate, basically that sort of regime. Kick out Wednesday as that sort of approaches, but not really going to affect us too much. We don't get too much of those, thank goodness, unless it's that really subtle westerly. You can see pretty light regime the whole way through. And we see that northerly component coming through late in the weekend is really going to bring some milder weather. I wasn't going to say warmer weather, but obviously everything we've had later. But you can see milder weather, and you can see again how we get skipped by that northerlies. Still be reasonably gusty northerlies or northwesterlies on the Monday into Tuesday as that decent front approaches. But again, that southwesterly component is going to do not much for us at all, other than cold, dry air. Blue Mountains, though, however, are going to get absolutely smashed, and Oberon and whatever you want to call it, which is not unusual either. Again, I love the way it shows just exactly the effect of the Great Dividing Range. Look at that. The wind gets forced up over the Great Dividing Range, and then basically downslope acceleration here, and you can see it hits the coast, and away it goes. Just that bump. You can imagine just like a speed bump, and that's exactly what's going on. And then here comes that change, and Wollongong Illawarra is going to get smashed. Pretty nasty sort of August type winds or July August winds, but we again get protected. Look at that, thankfully, because of the way the Great Dividing Range is aligned. We get enough of a kick over it, whereas the Illawarra doesn't seem to get any protection from it, even though it's closer to the coast. I think it's because you've got like this initial blob here and then another sort of, it doesn't, I don't know, but look at that, 50 knots. Ouch. And for us, only 50, 60 Ks north, basically, what, 20 knots max? Mate, the coast might get a little bit snippy down here towards the south in the Shire and then towards Engadine and Waterfall. But, again, that's like late next week, so I'll take that with it. But look at that. Wow. It's nasty. 50, 60 knots you're looking at potentially. Wow. Anyway. That's the outlook. I mean, there's not much else to tell you. I was going to actually have a last little presentation prepared, but there's nothing to put on it. Zero rainfall forecast, accumulated rainfall forecast over the whole outlook period. And the real highlight is going to be cold, dry, gusty, southwesterly changes. Yeah, not much happening. And really, what I want to show you is this is in response to this too. And I'm going to make this a bit bigger for you. There we go. I really like to show this because it really is at this stage nothing happening in terms of drivers. You can see here the blue is my index that I created, and you can see it pretty much matches what's going on. And when you get values of like sort of this 12 to 14 range, it really is dry. That just basically says nothing, and it's actually sort of like below average rainfall sort of indicators. So and then you pop up here, which is where you get this higher values plus, so sort of 15 and higher, or 16 and higher is basically enhanced rainfall chance, and you get up to 20. 20 is like extreme rainfall chance. And if you go back to the periods that we're looking at on that days as well, you can see it's very closely aligned to what happened in terms of a rainfall event. So back in May, look at that. 18, and we had that massive rain event, especially on the north coast. And so, I'm really actually happy about its performance along this stuff and how it actually tracks. And I've actually built in quite a lot of weighting. So in winter, it favors obviously the SAM a lot more because SAM is a lot more dominant climate driver for us. And then in summer, it obviously favors the SOI or ENSO, and IOD sort of provides a bit of like a bit of vanilla, or that sort of hints of flavouring. But the IOD is not a massive rainfall driver for us on the coast. In west of the Great Dividing Range, different story. But you can see there's like really not a lot happening in terms of driver. Now, if I was actually to bring that in for you, we'll just go to the last month. Actually, we'll go to the 1st of April because that will give you a really good indication about how it actually picks up the systems. It's got to load it. There's a lot of data it has to load. So in saying that, currently this is updated as of yesterday afternoon. So you can see we're currently in a cool neutral ENSO, and that's actually it dropped into the negative there for a while, but it's actually it's stabilized at about +5, which is good sign for potentially which I've forecast 2 months ago that as a potential La Nina at the end of this year. Unfortunately, it's going to be only a short, sharp one, so we'll see whether it actually gives us any decent benefit. But again, you can see the SOI trend is up, and it has been after down. SAM is neutral at this stage, and it's been sort of flapping between +1 and -1, which is basically the neutral value. it this year the trend is down. You got to understand with, remember, if you know anything about trends, that sort of stuff, it has to take a sample period. So I think it's over a period of 30 days. So because the sand bounces around so much, it's very hard to get a trend out of it. And you don't do trends on 7 days because that really gives you nothing. It's meaningless. It's more reactionary as opposed to, helping with forecast wise. The IID is neutral, though it is trending down, which is a good sign for those in the west, because that's obviously what provides a source of moisture. Again, it flattens out here because the Bureau or whoever provides the data for IID is only done every 7 days. So we'll get a new batch of data tomorrow. We'll show them, we'll get an idea of whereabouts it sits in terms of its values. So it's not flat. It's just because we haven't had data for a week. So we obviously have to smooth things out. But you can see again, my SAI, the Southern Climate Index, developed by me, is pretty much nailing about what we're having with the weather. It's plummeting, it's dropping, it's recognizing that we are in a pretty dry, high pressure dominated environment. And as of next week, or once we get the Patreon stuff again, is my little weather sensor will be definitely up and running with the linked up to whatever these values are, and it'll give an outlook about what will happen in terms of weather. And this is what people who subscribe will get access to. This won't be going out weekly. I'll go monthly, and that's it. I don't think in giving everything away at this stage. Otherwise, you don't entice people to want to spend measly $5, which is what it's going to be like. It's not going to be a huge amount of money. Now, for the exciting part, let's go to some questions first of all. I'm sorry, I have been yabbering and focusing on this stuff because I don't want to get distracted. So Sean, no, dry week. Cold, camping mid-July at this stage. I'll have an idea for you next week as to what July's looking at, but at this stage, it's looking dry, which will make Ahmed no doubt want to think about jumping himself off the harbour bridge, but too bad. I think July you'll be okay to go camping, to be honest. It'll be cold, but I think in terms of weather-wise, you'll be dry. Don't forget, East Coast lows or ECLs are invariably a system that it's dry. And so I went through and did a whole lot of work about, and it's coming, it's just a lot of work. And I've been focusing, as we talked about in the live the other day, your focus, or everybody's agreement, focus was that they want sort of the weather sort of data thing first. But yeah, generally East Coast lows are like those blip in the radars in otherwise this type of event, which is why I'm watching that thing off between Africa and WA very closely, because this is really about the time that ECLs will pounce. So yeah, keeping an eye on that very, very closely, because conditions are ripe in that terms, and we will see. Very much so. And if I will just bring this, no, lol, that was me. That was me having an argument with GPT saying a data sheet didn't exist. I'm like, well, it says on there it does. Where did I put that little graph showing ECL events? So that I hope I didn't trash it. Got so much stuff blubbering around at the moment. Give me a second so I can find it for you. It'll be around here somewhere. But anyway, I think I showed you the other day the correlation between that 14 to 30 day out loading and the climate indicators, and then so this is an interesting scenario. Of course, it's not guaranteed to happen, but it's just a red flag basically. Otherwise, that's what you'll get. Now, I really want to show you the mock of what it's going to look like. So this is what the mock version is. I'll make that full screen. Hopefully you're seeing that now on your screen. So this is basically what you're going to get. This is actually based on real data. I've been trying out. I've got all the APIs basically about ready to go. Some have obviously made up, but this is basically how it will look up. Now, can I get a yes? Where's that? Give me a second. I want to actually do. Where's my drawing tool? Tools. Annotate. That's what I want to do. Oh, you don't have a draw one here. like you do. Anybody can see a drawing one. Bugger, bugger, bugger. All right, well, I will just. I don't know where is. I hate preview anyway. I don't know why I'm even opening preview. It's useless, crappy. One of the useless, crappy Mac programs you can ever get. Preview. Um, Normally I would have put it in Canva for you. As I said, I've been very busy trying to get it done. No, I'm going to try that. Anyway, you just to watch my cursor. So obviously this will be current obs, and that will be based upon your location GPS, which is why you've given to me. I'm just waiting for the people who provide my APIs to get back to me. They've been a bit slack, I must say, but anyway, then I can start plugging your data in. This will obviously again be on based upon a whole range of stuff, but yeah, you can see health warnings. These warnings here will be clickable, so it'll obviously give you a heads up, and also relevant to your geolocation. And then there'll be you can click on it and it'll actually open up the full warning. Same as the 7 days forecast. Eventually, that will be also clickable. It'll go into a bit more of a deep climate center for you guys. This is basically. I know there's not 7 days. There's only 5 days, but don't count them. But that's exactly what it will look like. So you get like the date, which is there. The temperature is going to be, what the conditions are going to be like, and then obviously what rainfall is flagged in the models, and then of course anything that's going to be sort of significant will be flagged as well with a red highlight. This is stuff to give you to draw your eyes to it and think, oh, okay, that's potential for some weather on that date. And then of course the 24-hour forecast down here. Which will be like hourly, so it'll be like 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, what the forecast conditions are. And you'll also then have the capacity to actually set yourself a favorite time of the day, like, kids pick up or, whatever it might be. And that will highlight that time for you as well, what the conditions are likely to, or the forecast conditions are for that time of the day. So that's what I've been madly doing this afternoon, and then most of yesterday, or most of today and half yesterday. And then eventually that will then, of course, have satellite and radar, that sort of stuff as well. But that's not a major priority at this stage because there's a bit more coding that goes with that. But this is basically almost ready to run. It won't be developed. It won't be through the app stores at this stage. It'll be via direct URL from me, and it'll be definitely connected to you as a person, so you won't be able to people won't be able to use your link and hack it and that sort of stuff. But I'm not going to give too much away about how that works, because this is my PI stuff, my proprietary information. But yeah, so what are we thinking so far? Is that sort of what your expectations were? Does it look good? And said the radar and that sort of stuff will obviously come and satellite pictures and stuff eventually. That's a lot more work, a lot harder. But the data side of things is just about done. Let's mix green for pink color, green for pink color. Yeah. Hello, Alicia. Or yes, this is Alicia Funky Diva. Yep. I was able to load the video on my telly so I can watch it across the world. Cool. Nice work. Tari, actually no, Sean, I think Tari mid-July is actually normally quite dry, so you're pretty better. Normally that sort of the subtropical ridge pushes a bit further north, so they're not on the sort of convergent boundary like they are in sort of May and April. Thank you, Tracy. Hello to you. I will have testing versions hopefully by the end of this week, maybe even earlier, for you all to have a play with. It will be deployed via an app, but it won't be through the stores. It will be iOS or Android, so you don't have to worry about that. It will have some clickable settings and also give you eventually some themes, so you won't have to get stuck with this sort of light color. If you don't like it, you can make it. And I'm trying to make sure it will, if you're one of those people who uses that, like the light dark type settings on your native operating system, for day and nights and stuff, it hopefully will actually also adapt to that. Yeah, and that's probably as much as I can say at this stage for you. Yeah. Any questions about that part? I actually really like how that looks. I was actually surprised, to be honest. And the weird thing is like when I originally looked into this with um, doing like getting idea about it and asking ChatGPT like what's the idea about building an app and stuff. It told me like 3 to 6 months. But now I understand is that it's 3 to 6 months if you are looking to go through the PlayStation or the Play Store or Google Play Store, whatever it's called, and also the App Store, the Apple one, because they are complicated, convoluted, drawn out processes, and they also want to take a percentage of your money as well, revenue, especially Apple, who force you that way. Whereas this way, I can avoid them both, and none of our hard-earned cash goes to those scumbags. They get enough money as it is, and yeah, keeping costs as low as possible. So I'm actually really happy with this looks, and so I've already had some. I've already downloaded all the system drivers for Android and for iOS, so that's all up to date, ready to go to roll out. So yeah, you just need to, when we do the testing, you'll need to let me know what version or what operating system you're doing. But don't tell me now because I'll forget. I'll contact and ask you when that does happen. Otherwise, yeah. Of course, if you're not part of the trial, you're watching this, let me know because you can still be added to it. Not a problem at all. Forecast to show wins. Yeah, they can do. I am not a big fan of showing wins because models are horrendous at showing wins. To be honest, they massively under forecast and underestimate wins, and it can create problems. Um, and but I mean, if that's the request, absolutely, that's the whole idea. But this, it will be requests go in, and then we'll see what I can do. I mean, I've got all the data there, so like all this stuff is going to be doable. It's just about the value, I guess, in the end. But if people want wins, I'll put wins on there. No worries at all. There's plenty of room to put wins on there. And that the apostrophe or the comma, where it is instead of the decimal point, will go as well. That's just an artifact of computer software who does not like decimal points as delineators at all, because obviously they are used. Points are used in a whole lot of coding and bits and pieces. So I've actually got to write some stuff in there to actually convert that into the 0.8, for example. But yeah. Alerts icon. Yeah, it's up there. Up warnings. What alert are you talking about? I mean, anyway, don't put it in the chat here now because obviously we'll lose it. We can put it in the Patreon. That's what it's going to be doing. I'll put this picture up soon, and then everybody can go through it and put their wish list in. But then you have a player that see what works, what doesn't work for you, how it works in your device. As I said, it's going to be, it's not going to be massively like massive functional things like click on there and it's going to make you a coffee to start with because it's me, one person doing this. But I think it's going to. What I liked about it, it was just very quick, good reference stuff that means things to people. I looked at and I reviewed a whole lot of weather apps out there, and they gave you a whole lot of data. But in the end, I'm like, well, what would a person use that data for? And what would a person use that data for? The only other thing I thought about probably putting on here, which I probably would do looking at, is probably the feels like temperature too. I know that triggers some people, but feels like is actually a scientific thing. It's been used for a long, long time, and it's especially important for people in grazing industries, for example, who have outdoor animals, because the feels like temperature is obviously a very clear red flag for them to get animals inside the barns or that sort of stuff. And obviously we have sheep graziers alerts, and not that there's like a lot of cattle farmers in that part, but there's people out in the west who have animal horses, outside animals. Feels like warning or a flag or some sort of reading helps them to know to put blankets on and put their animals away. So that's the approach I talk about. Is about I want actual information that matters to people and they can use in the pursuit of their day-to-day activities, not some Met wankathon which looks at my how big my Met willy is by I'm going to put this on an app. I avoided that as much as possible. I just want consumable down to earth, relevant info. And that's the whole premise. That's the foundation of this. So, um, requests are fine. Absolutely love requests. Um, but don't be upset if I do push back and say, well, I don't think that in terms of consumable information is that going to make any difference to anybody. Wins, yeah, wins definitely could be, especially if you're like a sporty person or outdoor stuff. Like I can see how that would be relevant. So I'm not saying no. So don't think I'm saying no at all. Um, Alrighty. I think that's pretty about it. Anybody got any questions? That's just shit. Anything going on? Wind direction, yeah. I mean, both those things can. The warning sections change. Color represent warning levels. No, because complicated coding, and the way warnings come out from the bureau, it's problematic. Eventually down the track, possibly. And I really want to look at also possibly animating those, the little icons too, like the sun and the cloud and that sort of stuff too. But that's problematic in terms of devices, and it assumes that people have devices that have ability to run GIFs off that sort of size, and then you got to download all that file size, and it requires storage size. So I'm keeping it as light on as possible at this stage, just to see how we go in our testing phase and rolling it out. And if it's stable and there's no issues, then that could be a functionality that is offered, going forward. But things like lightning warnings too, that's the stuff. Lightning, local area bits and pieces like that is all going to be part of that. But this time of year, lightning low priority, and then bang, we get lightning today. So completely undid my own thought rationale on that. But anyway, but yeah. So they, obviously summer will have things geared towards, what things like hail warning, for example, and lightning, warning, and storm outlooks as well, for example. So that will be definitely all part of it. Not that we have many storms lately, anyway. But yeah, I can understand Sean about the flag. That's I totally agree. But that's one of the reasons why it is where it is at this stage. When you open it, it's the very first thing you're going to see, that and I've strategically positioned that. I've already road tested that image on phones, that sort of stuff, and how it comes up on a screen. And really, that warning is really basically in the area where you've just opened your app, you're looking at it. So it's going to be pretty hard to miss, to be honest. But I mean, yeah, I can look at that, but it's from a coding perspective, it's not as simple, because each of those little boxes you see on there is a widget. So really, I have to recode the whole widget to actually then adapt to something that goes into it. And I don't want to overly complicate the code going out, because more complicated code is A, hard for me, and B, it's also hard for your phones. And so as light on as I can keep it, as less complicated as I keep it, and it really just runs on, some bare minimum coding, and just delivers, information like that. It's far better for your phones to run it, as opposed to a lot of JavaScript or, display heavy scripts like you get with things like weather zone and stuff. And like, if you open it up, you see how slow and lag it is to run. I wanted to really avoid that. Less is best when it comes to this sort of stuff. And then what you do then is, from what my understanding of reading and that sort of stuff and research, is that you make things that people want to see like that clickable, so then they can go and then it makes and you clean up what the device loads, and so it's only that thing they want to see. So then that makes it a lot faster as well, because it's only loading that one thing that person wants to see. So it's like, you go into the supermarket, you got a whole store of stuff. Now, if that was all on your face when you walked in, you would be overwhelmed, and you wouldn't get in the supermarket. So obviously, they put the things that they think you might be interested at the front, the specials, and then you wander your way through and pick the stuff you want. And that's basically the way you can design an app too, is have stuff that's there, nice and quick for you to digest. And then if you really want stuff, you then go to the aisle and find that, and you check that thing in the aisle, and that makes the apps run a lot faster, a lot smoother. What would it say? An example in the warnings area? It will say a time in here. It'll have a time. It'll say severe storm warning and a clickable link, for example. or it may say, it may be issued by me, for example, and not waiting for the bureau to do it. It might say, heads up, hail likely in this area, for example, and then it will click back to a more in-depth sort of widget on the back end of this. What about a short, sharp sound clip for the weather if you click on it? What do you mean in that respect, Mr. Sharp? As in like a forecast clip, or are you talking about noises or sounds, or what's the stuff? Yeah, no. I know you're pre-typing. Oh, as in forecast. Yeah. I mean, anything's possible. It's about bandwidth and device capability for a start. And as soon as you start looking at multimedia, you start to really drain your resources, not only in terms of bandwidth, which means the app slows down, which pisses people off, but then you also, your phone device, for example, because it's got to load that phone file. If you're in a crappy mobile phone area, it might take forever and just frustrates people. Yeah, I've thought about all that, and I have erred on the side of keeping it light and lean, and then looking at how things evolve functionality wise. So, for example, this is like what you probably see on a device, mobile device, for example. But then in the background, this will be replicated. This type of style will be replicated. But here you would have so it's going to be the weather center. So that will be a similar color, for example, as to what you saw, or a similar style setup, but it would have a lot more detail. So it would have here, for example, a rain outlook, and you put your date in it, for example, for next week, and it'll give you like a forecast, like based upon what my SCI calculations are. So, for example, you put in there like, okay, what's the rain going to be for? Oh my god, if I got to do it right, um, what's giving the rain like next week in my mowing business? It'll come up and it'll say, um, XYZ, 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 based upon what the forecast SCI is doing. And I have like all that stuff ready to go behind the scenes. It's just really about now tying it all together. So once I get this part done, which is actually not far away, to be honest, this is what freaking API people to reply. Then that stuff can start testing it, and then I can start working on the weather center, which is behind the scenes, which is this thing here. And that will have more data. So like, you're at home on your tablet, for example, in the morning, you can just go straight to this and it'll have the same level of detail, but it'll have the commentary, and it'll have, the radar sort of access there, and the satellite picture loop access there as well, for example. So that's my thoughts with that. It's really all going to run off one source of truth, and it's the whole idea is that they design it that way to keep it nice and simple, because then if something does go wrong, it's easy to fix and it's easy to identify. But there's always this one source of truth, so there's not conflicting data or information. It's coming from one area. And not only that, it makes it a lot easier for me to do quick updates too. Like I can push out urgent alerts, for example, to people, like for that, using the app as well. So yeah, if you're talking about like notifications type things from this, yes, that will be added into it, especially for like pop-ups, like for warnings or advices, that sort of stuff. Yes, that will be included into it. So, which is actually, that's a good point. I should actually write that down somewhere. Notifications, notice plus pop-ups, and pushing warnings out to devices. Yeah, okay, actually some not bad falls in that little thing. On the coast, 6 to 4 to 7 mils, not bad. Not much in the west, a bit more like down here in the south. We didn't get much, not much wind, but it certainly did drop the temperatures. Look at that. 11 degrees only at 7 o'clock at night. It's going to be cold tonight. It's going to be super, super cold. Yeah, single figures in the west already. Camden down to 8 degrees already. Yow, ouch. Wow. So yeah, so that is in a nutshell what is planned. But as I said, you'll have that capability very soon to test and play around with, and I will hopefully I'll be running tests, so I'll push obviously run out some push notifications, like heads of large hail, or strong storm coming your way, or just things like that, just to test it, to um, as a means to helping people make decisions about their lives, which is what this whole thing is. The premise is based on. Now, where did my image go? Here. So yeah, we have a glossary for acronyms. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Can definitely put that on there. Absolutely, for sure. And again, it probably will be linked back to the weather sensor. That's going to be the source of all truth. That's really going to be ground zero in terms of everything going forward. I'm not going to have this hodgepodge system that I did sort of have, where I had like a spreadsheet for this. This will be like now the hub, and I'll be running off it too, and I'll be actually doing my forecasts out of it as well too. That will be it will be the one truth for everything going forward. Live shot so much better. Yeah, I know. It's so good. Hey, that's why I was struggling for so long. That's why eventually I had to sit down and do some analysis, but I'm like, I need to just get rid of Facebook Live. It was just useless. Absolutely useless in terms of function. I mean, I just love it here. I can do polls. I can do questions with you guys. I can use emoji reactions, and I can do it like, while I'm watching you, and speaking to you guys. It's not like I'm, you know, distracted, like having to look to the side screen, which is what I would have to do if I was on Facebook, because I'd have to have, the secondary monitor looking at what the feed was saying, to look at the comments were saying, because they couldn't put on the system as well. So I do actually have a thing that's supposed to actually make this persist over the top of things, so I could actually not have to worry about clicking it, but it didn't work. So I'm going to keep working on that. But I don't care. Like this, because of the way I've got my screen, you can see there's still quite a lot of detail in here, and it doesn't make any bit. I don't mind having the two split screens here. It's just a little bit more, obviously a little bit more pop-up work to do at the start of things, but nah. All right, we're going to get it going because it is time for divorce if I don't get moving soon. Alrighty, so keep an eye on, as I said, going forward from this point on, now, Patreon or Patreon, I don't know how to pronounce the freaking thing, but it will be the source of truth for you guys going forward in terms of what's going on behind the scene. And of course, heads up about any sort of potential things that I see flagging. I'm going to start my little blog on there, my little weather blog, just to talk about what's coming up and, things ahead, which is what early access, what I promised you guys. Not much to talk about at the moment, though. But yeah, so there will definitely be 2 lives a week. There'll be one Sunday and one Thursday, because that's basically balances out each other quite nicely. One sort of mid towards the end of the week, which is sort of like a summary, and then you got obviously the end of the weekend and starting the new week. Sort of balances out quite nice. You got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so 3 days. You got Thursday, and then you got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's like 3 and 3 almost. And it actually happens to work into my schedule very well, because they who must be obeyed work late Thursdays and work late tonight. So I have the time to sit down and give to it. Alrighty, I am going to POQ and have some dinner myself. Stay warm tonight. It's going to be freezing. Keep an eye on Patreon, please, because I'm going to be rolling out quite a few things this week. So I appreciate everybody's busy and that sort of stuff, but I really, to get this stuff done by the 1st of July, which is what obviously my goal is, I will need to make sure we do test it and put it through its hoops once we get stuff going. Otherwise, that is it for tonight, and it has been a pleasure as usual. Thank you so much for your volunteering, and yeah, it is greatly appreciated. This is where I need to figure out how to do this on here. I can probably no, I don't want comments on the code. Otherwise, have a great rest of your evening. Thank you for your support. Again, it's greatly appreciated. And we'll be chatting with you in Patreon, like usual. Have a good one. And ciao.